Hey there, how's it going? This is Northern California. A beautiful, warm, sunny day in early June. This is Lake Mendocino here. Very full at the moment. I tried to go to another spot at the north end of the lake there that I like to go to. There's a trail along the edge of the lake over there that's kind of more remote, but it was all flooded out, the road, so I couldn't get out there. And so this is the dam for the reservoir, and out here is the town of Ukiah. In this valley here, the coast range of mountains here on the western edge of California, and beyond that would be the Pacific Ocean, just a hour or so's drive that way. So quite a change of scene from rainy and kind of cool Canada, where I was last. I just got back a few days ago. Taking a break for a bit from the traveling. My mom lives here in Ukiah. This is the area where I was raised, in the town of Willits, which is just north up here, another 20 miles or so north. And I was raised in the woods outside of that town, about 5 miles outside of the town of Willits. And my mom and stepdad live here, and this is kind of my home base, one of my home bases where I stop and take a break and figure out my next travel plans, which is what I'm doing now. And so in this video then I thought that I would talk about how I got started traveling and give a bit more of my sort of backstory. So the adventure begins, you could say, in Vancouver, Canada. I was born in Canada. By the way, just wanted to mention, in case there's any issues with wind in this video, there is a bit of a breeze blowing here. I just ordered a wind slayer, it is called, which is a thing you put around the GoPro that will help cut out the wind noise in the future. So I'll just kind of do my best to shout above the wind here, and hopefully I can be heard okay. So the way that I ended up being born in Vancouver is that my parents are from Los Angeles originally. So there is the town of Ukiah out there. My parents met at Long Beach State University, and they both worked at the hospital. My dad was a laboratory technician, my mom was a nurse. My dad had a boss that was from Vancouver, and that guy moved back to Vancouver, and my parents decided that they wanted to get out of Los Angeles, and so they decided to move up to Canada for a little while, and ended up living there for 2 years. And so I was born there, and then we moved back here to California when I was 1.5 years old, first down to Los Angeles, and then moved up north to Sonoma County, and then up here to Willits, and then I was raised there. And so my adventures really began when I was a kid. And first of all, my parents were adventurous to begin with. They liked hiking and skiing and stuff like that. There's like a photo of me in my dad's backpack, standing in my dad's backpack while he is skiing. I think that was in Canada. I'm like 1 year or 2 old or something. And we would go on all sorts of adventures, mostly around California, going to Yosemite National Park, going backpacking. And then my own independent traveling adventures began also when I was a kid, because I started hitchhiking about 40 years ago. 40. Because, as I mentioned, we lived outside of that little town of Willits, and the bus would take us like 4 miles up the paved road that goes out of town, Sherwood Road, and then from there was a dirt road that went like 1.5 miles to the top of our driveway. And so the bus wouldn't go up that dirt road, it would just drop us off at the bottom of the dirt road, and then it was up to me to get myself somehow out to our house. And sometimes my parents would pick me up, but oftentimes they would not, and I would be stuck having to walk that whole way out to our house. And so at some point, I don't remember how, I came up with the idea of hitchhiking, and instead of walking, then just stop and wait for a car to come along, another neighbor or whatever, and stick out my thumb. I remember that was, you know, what I was actually doing. I think that I had probably seen hitchhikers previously, probably when I was driving around or whatever with my parents or something, and seen some hitchhikers on the road. Maybe my parents explained that guy's a hitchhiker and that's why he's standing there with his thumb out. And so I started hitchhiking every day home from school when I didn't have a ride. And I was also an avid reader and just read voraciously all kinds of books, and I'm sure that that was one influence on me in terms of reading about the world and as a result, having a curiosity about the world and reading these various adventures, Mark Twain and Treasure Island and, you know, all kinds of adventurous type of books, either fiction or non-fiction, and just getting that desire, that wanderlust, that curiosity, that interest in seeing something else, something different. And so I was kind of primed to travel when I was a teenager. I couldn't wait to get out of high school. And so I ended up graduating when I was 17 years old in spring of 1989, 30 years ago. This is my 30-year high school graduation reunion, I guess. I don't even know if there's a reunion going on or not. I'm really not that interested in going back to revisit. But for one thing, I only went to that high school for 1 year because I moved from this area down to the Bay Area, and in 11th grade then I went to Skyline High School in Oakland, and then after that changed to Berkeley High School in California and graduated from Berkeley High School in 1989. And so I'd only gone to that high school for 1 year, and so I don't have quite as much of a attachment to seeing the people or anything. But anyways, now when I was 8 years old, that would have been the summer of 1980, then my aunt took me on this around the western US trip. Just me and my aunt, my mom's sister. She lives in Santa Rosa, just south of here. And she took me on this trip going all over the western US. We went to tons of national parks. It was like 2 weeks of driving around and mostly camping. And it was a really big adventure, especially for a, you know, 8-year-old, to see all these different states, see all these national parks, lots of hiking. It was really a kind of great American road trip. And so I'm sure that that was yet another influence on my interest in travel. And my parents had actually done a hitchhiking trip in the United Kingdom and Europe when they were in their 20s, in like 1968, I think. And they'd spent like 6 weeks traveling with another couple around the UK and parts of Europe. And I'd heard those stories of their hitchhiking adventures, so yet one more, you know, influence on my childhood that would have had a impact on the kinds of things that I was thinking were possible to do when I was old enough. And so I graduated when I was 17, and I needed to wait until I was 18 to actually do any traveling. I wasn't quite yet fully committed or ready to actually take that leap and actually go somewhere. Also, I didn't have any money. And so I went to a community college, actually the one right here, Mendocino Community College in Ukiah. My parents had gotten divorced when I was 15, and that is why I had moved down to the Bay Area with my dad. My mom stayed up here, and then she moved to Ukiah and has been here ever since. And so after graduating from high school, then my mom had this trip planned as a high school graduation gift. Uh-oh, there is a flood on the trail. The same problem that I encountered when I was over there, except the entire road was flooded out. Dang, there is no way to get through here. So I'm going to turn around and see what happens if I go left that way. I don't think I've ever actually gone up that road. See what happens. Too bad, because there's great hiking trails over there. But now I know Lake Mendocino is full up. And so my mom had organized this trip with my brother and myself going to Kauai, Hawaii. That was in June of 1989, and so exactly 3 years ago. And so really my travels began 30 years ago, although it wasn't until the next summer that I actually went on my first solo trip abroad to Europe. But that summer we did that trip to Hawaii, and I hiked the Kalalau Trail along the Nepali coast. My mom and my brother and I did a day hike, just going 2 miles in to the first beach called Hanakapiai. It is a 11-mile trail, very intense, going up and down these cliffs. Nepali means cliffs in Hawaiian, and so it's called the Nepali coast, and there's no road because of those intense cliffs. And my mom had really done her research for this trip, and she knew about that trail. And so we did that day hike, and I remember on the hike, talking with a forest ranger who I guess we had passed or something, and she talked about how the trail kept going another 9 miles past Hanakapiai Beach there, and she'd mentioned how there was a campground out there, and I feel like I even remember her talking about hippies like living back there long term and stuff. Maybe it wasn't a forest ranger, maybe it was somebody else we were talking to who was hiking out of there. I don't know exactly, but anyways, I got kind of instilled in my mind the idea of this kind of camping tropical beach paradise out there, far away from the roads and town and cars and everything. And after our trip, then, you know, basically forgot about it. But then I went back to Hawaii 8 years later, and as a basically hippie backpacker, was there just to sleep on the beaches. I had a tent, and I had it in mind to find out more about this Kalalau Trail and see if I could do the hike, and I ended up doing it. And I'll just say that I stayed out there for a while. And so after that summer in 1989, then I went to community college here in Ukiah at Mendocino Community College. And after that one semester, I was really just done with school and wanted to do something completely different, and was really hooked on the idea of traveling. So I decided that I was going to go to Europe for the summer, and I had some money saved up because my dad had paid me as a incentive my last semester of high school because my grades were kind of getting worse. And he'd said, okay, for every A, I'll pay you $200. For every B, I'll pay you $100. And that was it, nothing for a C. And so I tried really hard that semester and got like all A's and a B, something like that. And so I had this cash still left, I guess, or at least part of it, later in the fall or that coming winter. And then I had a computer that I sold and made some more money there. I also had a baseball card collection, and I sold that. And then I moved after that semester in Ukiah here, back down to the Bay Area, and lived with my dad there for another couple of months, and got a job at a ice cream parlor, scooping ice cream, for like 2 months, and saved up some more money. And so with all of that put together, then I had about like $2,000, like it wasn't very much. And I remember that the plane ticket round trip from San Francisco to London and back was $600. And so I was left with like $1,350, as I remember it, something like that, $1,300, $1,400, somewhere around there, for 3.5 months in Europe. I mean, now I go there and I spend like twice that in a month, but it was 30 years ago, of course, and I was doing it extreme budget style. I had a tent, and hostels were so cheap. I remember in the UK, hostels were typically like £3 to £5, whereas now they're like 20 to 30 pounds minimum. And I did a lot of camping with the tent that I had, and did a combination of hitchhiking and taking trains. I had a Eurail pass for about 2 months, and so I had to hitchhike the rest of the time, and I hitchhiked around the UK and then started the train pass. And so I used the train pass all over Europe and did a little bit of hitchhiking as well in, I remember, Greece, and in the Alps of Austria and Switzerland, and in the Pyrenees of southern France, hitchhiking through these little villages where there was no trains out there, and had a really amazing trip. And so that is the beginning of my travels, and it's been a lot of adventures since then. I'm going to make another video kind of for my 300,000 subscriber celebration or whatever, talking about all of the countries that I've been to. Altogether, I've been on 18 different extended trips, starting with that one to Europe, 18 total trips outside of the US, as well as lots of traveling within the US. A vineyard up ahead, certified organic, Bella Collina, Mendocino County. This is Mendocino County here. Petite Sirah, Zinfandel, Boundary. I guess I'll stop then. I had never walked out here before, so that's cool to come across a vineyard. This is wine country. Just south of here is Napa County and Sonoma counties, which are even more known for being wine country, but Mendocino County here as well has lots of vineyards. So I'll start walking back here and finish up this video. And so I'll make another video giving a recap of all of my travels, all of the countries I've been to, give a little general overview idea of everywhere I've traveled in the past 30 years. And then my plan is to make various other separate videos telling different stories from my travels, because so many crazy stories and experiences, many of which are not on video because they happened before I started making YouTube videos. And there are some really wild and crazy, scary, funny, just weird experiences I've been through. So that is it for now. I'm going to be hanging out in this area for the next week at least, and then I have some plans in the works coming up. Not exactly sure yet, but quite possibly a road trip here in the US with a friend within the next week or two, something like that. So take it easy, lots more coming. See ya.